Yeah, there she is. So thank you for attending, and I see some colleagues from West Campus here and downtown. So this is clearly an event that brings Spanish across the university together, and we're very excited about that. Our speaker today is Professor Frederick Aldama, and he will be introduced by the chair of the Spanish section here, the Spanish section on the Tempe campus, Regents Professor David William Foster. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. A welcome in the name of the School of International Letters and Cultures and the Spanish and Portuguese program. As people are tired of hearing me say, I've been at ASU now 53 years. I have not, in those 53 years, had as distinguished an opportunity to introduce a speaker as I have this afternoon. It is truly a noteworthy event for us to have Frederick Aldama on this campus. Aldama did his PhD at Stanford University, and he is a distinguished university scholar in the Department of English at Ohio State University. What makes Aldama so particularly distinguished is that he really represents the highest pinnacle of innovation in Hispanic and Latinx studies at the present moment. And as we know, ASU is all about innovation. And so this is why his work is particularly resonant with us. Aldama has pioneered so many areas that it's difficult to summarize them, but I would say his influence has come in three major areas. One is being a pioneer in what, at the time for us, was outlier subjects in Hispanic studies. That is, the inclusion, for example, of sports studies, unheard of in the day in which I was trained in the discipline. He has also been a pioneer in gender and queer studies for Latino studies and Hispanic studies, an area which I'm very well aware is an outlier area, and it took us a long time to legitimate it. Although, as I was saying to him this morning, as much resistance as there was in the early days to queer studies in the Latino community, today the National Association of Chicano Studies is probably 90% queer studies. So I think we've made some headway in that area. The other important contribution that Aldama has made has been in the area of visual studies. Most of us working in visual studies were trained really as literature professors because that's all one did in the olden days. And even into the 90s, which is the period in which Aldama was trained at Stanford. But it has been very important for us to bring attention to the important contributions of Hispanics, Chicanos, Latinos in the area of film studies, for example, or in the area of graphic narrative, or in the area of television studies, or in the area of photography. These are all areas of visual studies that are particularly important. And I'm very grateful to Aldama for his support in this area because it has been part of the support that I've received for my work in Chicano photography and now most recently on Brazilian photography. And this leads me to his third contribution, which has been to direct monograph series focusing on these cutting-edge areas of our discipline. Series for University of Arizona Press, for example, which has a very distinguished series on Latino studies. A University of Pittsburgh, which is where I've been publishing, thanks to Aldama's generous support. University of Texas. I think also, yes, you had something to do with my publishing a book on photography with the University of Texas. So his influence is very widespread. And this is in the best tradition of the academy, the way in which we count on individuals, not only to be so innovative in their thinking and their foresight about where the discipline should go, but also in their unstinting generosity towards their colleagues in making sure that the work of people in the discipline attains the adequate recognition in order to further the interests of the discipline. So it is for these reasons that for me it is such an honor to introduce to you Frederick Luis Aldama.
Okay, so I think I have a lot to live up to right now. I am going to take you guys on a quick journey, a journey that starts a little bit back before I was even born. But before I do that, this is Hispanic Heritage Month, right? Yeah, right? Let's hear it for Hispanic Heritage Month. So, the U.S. is so good at erasing histories that it's not convenient for itself, right, to represent. And we get 1 month out of the year, so we might as well have fun, right? We might as well have some fun. Yeah, so I am the product, talk about transborder, I'm like transborder, okay, like many of us. My mom is Irish Guatemalan, or she was, and she grew up in Texas and in California, and had heard stories secretly from her mother about her family in Guatemala. Secretly because my grandmother married a bigoted Irish American who basically didn't want any talk in Spanish and no talk about family south of the border. Go figure, he married, right, Latina, Guatemalan. Anyway, she did decide when she was 18, she got on a bus and traveled south to go to Guatemala City. And she never made it because her bus stopped in Mexico City. And she fell in love with Mexico City. And then secondarily, she fell in love with my dad. Yeah, my dad is a real product of the kind of activism of the late 60s. He actually lost friends in the big massacre of '68. And he dedicated his life to being an activist. It didn't do well as a kind of family man, but he did really well as an activist. He's still working very actively. He's back in Mexico now. But we decided to come back. She threw us all on the bus and brought us home. I mention all this because also what happened to us as little ones, I was 5 years old, in California during a time in the early 70s when you were punished for speaking Spanish. You were punished for speaking that dirty Mexican. You were punished for speaking English with an accent, right? Hit on the hand with a ruler. So generationally now, our secret language happened, right, in and through Spanish. Spanish became something that we coveted, but publicly we were ashamed of, right? We were ashamed of this. My mother decided to send herself back to school while we were young so she could become a teacher to try to change that. I mention all this because in many ways, me standing here is in honor of my mom, mi mama, who sacrificed a lot. In fact, she sacrificed her life because we grew up where they sprayed pesticides almost on a daily basis. And my mom, where we went to school, elementary school, they would spray pesticides, and she died quite young. So she literally gave her life, right, to make a difference. And in many ways, that's what I'm doing or trying to do. I'm trying to live up to that legacy. I ended up going to Berkeley, and then I followed that with a trip over to Stanford for my PhD, where they have amazing palm trees. And I asked one of the workers there one day how much those palm trees cost, because they put them in full grown. And he told me $100,000 for one palm tree. Wow, okay. Anyway, I was at Berkeley, that's when I started thinking, right? I started thinking, how is it this stuff that I love, literature, right, film, all these things that I started to study systematically, what do they actually do in the world? Are they just entertainment? Are they more than entertainment? How are they built? And how do they transform audiences to maybe act in the world, right? I was asking all these questions. I worked with Alfred Arteaga and Barbara Christian, and later with Ramon Saldívar at Stanford, trying to get at the heart of both creation, right? What is created, and then how we co-create, especially in and around Latinx narratives. How we co-create. Because I was never comfortable with this idea that somehow we were passive, absorptive sponges, right? That in fact we are very active when we are engaged with a movie or a literature. We're constantly gap filling and imagining, but we're also putting ourselves there, right? We're putting ourselves into that experience. I've ended up publishing a bunch of books around this because of my drive to really go deep into how we create, where creation comes from, how we distill and reconstruct, right, in our own co-creation. So film, books on film, Robert Rodriguez, I had the honor of spending the day with him at his Troublemaker Studios in Austin, but a bunch of others, including the Latinx Superheroes, which has been where I've really been working in terms of comics. But I also write, as David was saying, I also write in both Spanish and English, my own fiction. And I'm going to share with you in just a little bit of my first children's book that will drop in June, The Adventures of Chupacabra Charlie. So yeah, Latinx pop cultural studies, right? Some people are cultural studies, what is that? Or pop cultural studies, that's even like, whoa, why even bother, right? Anybody ever get that? Anybody ever read a comic book at a Starbucks or somewhere public? Someone come up to you and be like, what is that? Why are you doing that? Right? And you're a university student? Come on, right? Or film, take a film studies class, right? Anyway, this stuff matters, obviously, right? This stuff matters. It can expand our understanding of our active creation and active reception of Latinx cultural phenomena. In other words, it can tell us a lot about us, right? About how we're built, how we interact with each other, right? How we are as a sort of human species, as a race, as a society. How we distill and reconstruct the building blocks of reality, right? Because most of the stuff that we see is somehow a distillation, a paraphrase, and then kind of given some kind of shape, aesthetic shape, right? As it meets us, whether it's a graphic novel or a film or a TV show or any of the other things that we're... But I really am excited and interested about how it actually changes things. Those things that you put out in the world that suddenly I come across and I'm like, wow, I never thought about that, or I haven't seen it from this perspective yet. I've never felt that emotion before, or that series of complex emotions together before. How is it possible? The building blocks of reality, and I don't have to tell you guys, you live in the Southwest, you live in Arizona, where, we are Latinx everywhere, and we are Latinx in all the different ways that we can possibly be that. In a place like Columbus, Ohio, it's becoming more and more that way, but this is something that I have to remind folks over there, right? That this country is actually a majority underrepresented Latinx, right? A majority, and yet, when it comes to, right, we're 18% of the population, and yet we're, because of the gatekeeping, the lockout, the push out, we're around 2% represented. We're around 2% in everything, right? TV, film, children's books. Go to the library. Anybody been to a kid's library lately? Pull any random book off the shelf, and I guarantee you it doesn't have Latinx kids, right? Families, experiences being distilled and reconstructed. Okay, this is not a rhetorical question. Anybody from the audience, when was the last time you saw Latinx, I don't know, anywhere in the media, in the pop culture, and what was it? Anybody? Jane the Virgin? Okay, yeah. Film critique? Okay. What else?
Hustlers.
Hustlers, okay, J-Lo, right? Okay. Okay, so we have the virgin and the whore.
Yeah.
Right? Is that all we're getting? Is that all we're getting? I don't know, I think we can do better, right? Yeah, so our Latinx communities have been blocked from access to knowledge, concepts, and a wide spectrum of experience. I know I've got some folks working in education here, right? The push out, and then the lockout. How can we be behind the cameras, creating the scripts, doing the filming, doing the editing, right? All of those things that shape narratives, right? How can we be there telling our stories if we're not given access, right? If we're not given access. There's gatekeeping, we know that. But geez, we're not even getting the access, right? We've been willfully absented from the cultural imagination here in the US. Willfully absented. So a study of cultural phenomena for those of you who need this in your back pocket to justify your existence here at ASU, right? It can shed light on how media continues to diminish the real complex presence of real Latinxes today, and how Latinx cultural phenomena reconstructs our complex identities and experiences. How Latinx cultural phenomena can make new our perception, thought, and feeling, right? Yeah, all of these things. But I want to take us quickly through a journey of what we are getting. So we already got the Hustlers, we got the Jane the Virgin. But this stuff, we have become habituated, right? You go to the grocery store and you can't just buy Mexican chocolate. It has to be for people who like it sweet, spicy, and steamy. Our abuelita even, right? She doesn't get let off the hook here. Okay? I'm telling you. Finally, tecate, a cold Latina. Really? I'm telling you, are you guys like, this should drive you nuts. Are you ready? Let's go protest, I'm ready. Okay. Yeah, and then so we're hypersexualized, right? All over the place. We're t-shirts without any sense of where the culture comes that informs Dia de los Muertos. We're cool, right? We're cool to wear, but no one bothers to do the homework. Okay? We're cool to wear. And here, you guys remember this controversy with the elementary school teachers and the wall and dressing up in these sombreros. Okay, this is stuff that we should be really angry about. We should be really angry about, and I think we are. 18% of the population, yet only 2% representation. Oversexed, hot-headed, cowardly, betrayer, criminal, and buffoon. We should be angry, right? We should be angry. This is how we're being... okay, look, I'm going to tell you. When Dora came out, and she's 13 now, but when Dora came out, my little girl was in diapers, and I loved it. I don't know if it came out right then, but it was something that I paid attention to. But then you actually look at Dora, and I know they were going for the pan-Latina, because they wanted all of us. They wanted Puerto Ricans, they wanted Cubans, they wanted Mexicans to be like paying attention, and they wanted the kind of exotic, soft representation so everybody would feel comfortable. Okay. But then the Spanish, how is she teaching Spanish? She's teaching Spanish that's disconnected from culture. Spanish, like with Handy Manny, is only a Spanish that's used like you would use a wrench to fix your sink. Right? Yeah. I mean, so yeah, we need to continue to... Eva Longoria, she got a master's degree in Chicano studies, and has anybody seen Devious Maids? Don't. You'll hate it so much, you'll run for the hills, okay? But you're like, hold on, this is someone who's supposed to be woke, and she's still somehow beholden to the money, right? Recreating stereotypes like you cannot believe, right? Modern Family, okay. What are we going to do with Modern Family? What are we going to do with Modern Family? Let's just remind ourselves here with Gloria.
First Manny correcting me, and now you. I have a problem I want to know then. What else do I say wrong? What else? And what else?
Just little mispronunciations. Like, for example, last night you said, we live in a dog-eat-dog world.
So?
Well, it's dog-eat-dog world. Well, it's not blessings in disguise. It's blessings in disguise. Carpool tunnel syndrome is not carpool tunnel syndrome.
Oh, so now you have a problem with the way I speak? I told you, Dave.
Okay, I think that's enough, right? But, okay, who are we? Are we being asked to laugh with Gloria, or are we being asked to laugh at Gloria? With or at? At. Big difference, right? Big, big difference. When the writers are asking us to laugh at her, and we have never had the chance to laugh with a Latina on TV, it's a problem, right? It is a problem. This is from Chips, the remake. Okay, anybody watch this? Don't. Do not watch it. This is how Miguel Peña as Poncharello is introduced to us. This is the first time we meet this character. He's so hypersexualized. He's right. The first time we encounter him, this is what he's doing, and then we hear from his buddy.
Sorry you crashed, man. I tried to warn you. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Look, man, just real quick. I wasn't trying to embarrass you. We all have sex issues. I haven't slept with my wife in a year. So when people have over-sexualized behavior like yours, sometimes that's evidence of past childhood trauma, and I just wanted you to feel safe.
There's been no trauma, okay? And my goal in life isn't to feel safe talking to you. What I do and how many times I do it in the bathroom, that's personal, okay? That's my business. That's not our business.
I'll stay out of it.
So Punch in this version of Chips is a habitual or obsessed with masturbation character. That's what defines him in this film, right? And there's no irony in this, right? This is straight up film. This is how we're going to build his character, right? Compulsive masturbator, Latino, right? We do get, this is really cool. This one, of course, I love, because I love comic books and always have. Shazam, the New 52. I love this moment in the comic book because the family, the foster family, were Latino. In the remake, in the film Reconstruction, we have the familia, right, Vasquez, but why in the world did they choose not to cast Latinxes, right? This is so typical, though. We've had brownface in so many other ways. Penelope Cruz, right? Banderas, we were just talking about Mexican movies, or actually movies from Spain, which is where he got his sort of break, right? Why is this obsession with casting others to play Latinxes, right? What we call sort of minstrelsy or brown-facing, right? In fact, anybody watch G-Force? Okay, this is what happens when you had a kid back in those days. I was watching all these movies. G-Force. What was it? Agent? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. There were all these hamsters that were like special agents. One was Special Agent Juarez. Okay, so they couldn't find a Latina to play like the voice of Special Agent Juarez. They cast Penelope Cruz, right? From Spain. Safe. It's safe, right? Safe. Robin Williams. Happy Feet 2. Anybody see that? Ramon, the Latin lover. But it's Robin Williams. I don't have anything against the guy, but seriously, right? It just keeps going on and on and on. This is from Batman v Superman.
Believe in a higher power. Every religion believes in some sort of messianic figure.
Okay, where do we start with this one? Anybody see this movie? Okay, I'm showing you all these things that you don't need to watch, right? But basically, right, it's kind of making my point. You saw it, right? Do you remember what happened? Why he's doing this?
It was like he saved the woman.
Yeah, there's a little girl in the burning building in Juarez, right? Yeah. Okay, we will grant Superman the fact that he needs to save Metropolis from a Kryptonian alien invasion. We need him. Like, it's a high-tech invasion. We need Superman. But do we need Superman to fly to Juarez to save a little girl from a burning building? And what kind of message does that send? And finally, how is it that, like, whenever we are in mainstream representation as a collective, it's Day of the Dead? Serious, right? Am I right? Right? Okay. And then, of course, the messianic, right? They don't hold back there. Somehow, like, yeah, when he's in Metropolis, no one's doing this kind of crazy stuff. But when he's south of the border, the messianism is forthright. Yeah.
Perpetuates the white savior narrative and typical in black film as well.
Yeah, it's the white savior narrative, right? And it's not white savior narrative Avatar on another planet. It's white savior narrative right here in things that are familiar to us. Yeah, so this stuff matters. Media matters because it does act on us. And it does change things. It changes our ideas about people, right? It allows for a certain laziness as well. But when you have a president, right, tweeting, right, this kind of stuff, and then fortunately a journalist who did a little, like a modicum of research, realizing that where they tie up women and they put duct tape on their mouths and they put them in the backseat of a car or in a van, and then when he says, we found prayer rugs out here, if you've seen this movie, he obviously had just watched this movie. It's exactly what happens in the movie, right? But it has consequences, and we're seeing those consequences today, right? We're seeing those consequences. Media matters, multimedia Latinxes. When our US reality is Latinx, today's lack of representation and misrepresentation, let's just call it for what it is. It's ignorant, shameful, destructive, and maybe we can all agree here, yeah, it's racist. Okay, now, part 2 of the journey. We're not just going to wallow in all the bullshit out there, are we? No, we're going to look at actually like what we're doing as Latinxes to push against this stuff, because we're not just sitting back, right? We are constantly doing stuff to push against this misrepresentation, these acts of creating new social, political, cultural maps with what we create and put out in the world that actually speak to our communities, where we're telling our own stories, right? We're giving shape to the media, the cultural phenomena, the pop cultural phenomena out there to make new this perceiving, thinking, and feeling, right, about our communities. I don't know if you remember this, but Disney tried to patent Dia de los Muertos, right? They tried to patent Day of the Dead. Okay, that's pretty wild. I'm going to try and patent Halloween. I mean, right? Like, well, I guess OSU just tried to patent the article. Did you guys read about that? The Ohio State University. So they tried to patent the article. Okay, I'm not sure it's like at this level, but that's still pretty crazy stuff. Okay, yeah. But Lalo Alcaraz says, heck no, right? And so he created Muerto Mouse as a pushback, and it galvanized, it mobilized a lot of people. There's a huge pushback against Disney. This is so outrageous, right? And later, guess what? Disney Pixar said, hey, Lalo, you want to come and help us out on this film? Right? There's pushback against Lalo because he said yes, right? But like he said, if it's not me, they're going to get it wrong. And in fact, I put this image up here with the chancla because they actually originally had the abuelita throwing a spoon. Like we all know, like it's super whiz chancla, right? That's how it works. You can be sitting in your bedroom, like, you know, way over here. The kitchen's over here, about 3 like hallways down, and to the left and to the right, and it'll still find your head, right? Okay, yeah. So they brought him on, and guess what? Coco killed it, because for the most part they got things right. There's some stuff that they kind of fudged, right? But then for the most part they got it right. Latinx created narratives wake us to a mainstream that aims to condition us to accept negative stereotypes, and we say no, cut through the racist and sexist narratives that create an illusion of the natural order of things. An illusion, right? An illusion that you can only be represented as a virgin or a whore or a buffoon or a compulsive masturbator if you're Latinx and you are in the media. One day at a time is an exception, but I think it's an exception not only because of who's in front of the camera, but who's behind the camera. And it was a hugely successful show, and then they canceled it. But what I love about this story is that you guys said no. We want one day at a time. We want this to continue. There was such a huge pushback that it's back on, right? It's back on. And I just want to show you